The fall, from fan favorite to forgotten. There was a time when the name Rickie Fowler meant something. When the sight of that orange Sunday outfit sent a ripple through every fairway, when kids lined up wearing flat brim hats just to look like him, when every leaderboard felt incomplete without his name near the top. But somewhere along the way, the cheers got quieter. Golf changed. The next generation took over. The headlines stopped being about Rickie's style or swagger and started being about his slump. Because for almost 5 years, Fowler's career wasn't defined by victories. It was defined by what-ifs. Once ranked inside the world's top 10, once a major contender in almost every big event, Fowler's form slipped, slowly at first, then all at once. The swing that once looked effortless became overanalyzed. The confidence that once looked unshakable turned fragile. Week after week, the cuts missed piled up. Interviews got shorter. Invitations got fewer. And every Sunday, when the cameras focused on the next wave of stars, Rickie Fowler faded further from the frame. It's not easy watching your own highlight reels turn into history. By 2024, Rickie had become more memory than momentum. No wins, no top 10s, barely a whisper of the old magic. Commentators began to say the quiet part out loud. Maybe it's over. And in a sport where results speak louder than reputation, he wasn't just losing tournaments, he was losing relevance. Golf, brutal as it is, doesn't wait for nostalgia. You earn your place every week, every swing, every hole. And for Fowler, the opportunities were slipping away. He didn't qualify for events he used to headline. He needed sponsor exemptions, those rare invites given not for performance, but for who you used to be. That's how he arrived at the 2025 Truist Championship. Not as a favorite, not as a headline, just as a name people once remembered. For some, it was a courtesy. For Rickie, it was a lifeline. And that's where this story really begins. Because sometimes, when you have nothing left to lose, that's when you play your best golf. The cameras barely noticed him when he teed off Thursday morning. But by the end of that round, the entire sport would. Because this wasn't just another tournament. This was the moment everything changed. The spark, the round that shocked the golf world. Thursday, 10:42 a.m., Philadelphia Cricket Club. The air hung heavy with that early round quiet, the kind where crowds shuffle more than they cheer. Most of the cameras were pointed elsewhere. Rickie Fowler wasn't supposed to be a headline that day. He was a side note, a name on the tee sheet, not a thread on the leaderboard. But golf, for all its predictability, has a way of rewriting scripts when you least expect it. The first few holes were steady. Fairway, green, par. No fireworks, no roars. Just a man trying to find rhythm. And then, like a switch flipping, it started. On the 4th hole, Fowler rolled in a 20-footer for birdie. On the 5th, another one. On the 6th, he stuffed an iron inside 6 feet and drained that too. 3 straight birdies. 3 perfect swings. 3 flashes of the old Rickie. Suddenly, the swagger was back. The little bounce in his step, the calm stare at the ball as it dropped dead center. It wasn't loud yet, but it was brewing. By the turn, Fowler sat at 4 under. And the whispers began. Rickie's playing well today. Could he actually? But the back 9? That's where legends build their stories. On 11, a pure wedge and another birdie. On 13, the crowd started to gather. Word had spread. Rickie's on fire. He didn't flinch. He hit a towering 7-iron that landed soft, rolled a few feet, and stopped. Birdie again. Now it's 6 under. And then came 16. A slick downhill putt, the kind that exposes nerves. But Rickie didn't hesitate. One look, one stroke, one perfect drop. The roar that followed wasn't just for a birdie. It was for a comeback. When he walked up the 18th fairway, you could see it in his posture, that quiet confidence, that feeling of belonging again. He tapped in for par. 7 under par. The score flashed across leaderboards like a shockwave. The guy who wasn't even supposed to be there had just torched one of the toughest courses on tour. Suddenly, fans were texting, tweeting, posting, "Rickie Fowler is back! Wait! Did you see what he just shot? Where did this come from?" And that's the beauty of it. Nobody expected it. Not the analysts, not the bookmakers, maybe not even Rickie himself. But there's a special kind of energy that comes when a player remembers who he is. And for one round, Rickie Fowler wasn't a struggling veteran. He was the spark the golf world didn't know it needed. He finished the day tied for second with Colin Morikawa. Only Keith Mitchell's blistering 61 kept him from leading outright. But the number didn't matter, because this wasn't about position. This was about resurrection. When he walked off the 18th green, reporters crowded him. Cameras clicked. The same media that had ignored him hours earlier now wanted every word. And Rickie, smiling like a man who just found something he'd lost, said simply, "I knew it was still in there. Just needed to let it out. That round was more than golf. It was proof. Proof that heart still matters. That experience counts. That you can't measure hunger on a stat sheet." It was the sound before the storm. Because after that day, everything changed. For Rickie, for the fans, for the tour itself. This wasn't nostalgia, it was ignition. The redemption. When doubt dies and legacy breathes again. There's a moment in every comeback where doubt finally breaks. For Rickie Fowler, that moment came not with a trophy in his hands, but with belief back in his swing. Because that 63 wasn't luck. It wasn't nostalgia. It was a reminder that fire never really goes out. It just waits for oxygen. And after the Truist Championship, the oxygen came flooding in. The ripple effect golf fans felt it immediately. The energy online, the buzz in the broadcasts. It was as if everyone suddenly remembered why they loved this game in the first place. Not because of money, rankings, or drama, but because of stories like this. The story of a man who'd been written off. A name once whispered, now shouted again across leaderboards. And when the PGA announced its special exemption for the upcoming championship, one of golf's sacred 4 majors, that announcement hit differently. It wasn't charity. It wasn't pity. It was respect. The kind earned not through status, but through persistence. The kind that says, you've given too much to this game to be left behind. And Rickie? He didn't take that invitation lightly. He walked into that major not as a veteran looking for one last dance, but as a competitor ready to rewrite the story everyone else thought was finished. And from doubt to defiance. You could see it in his eyes. That calm intensity of a man who's heard all the noise and decided to play louder. Every swing at the PGA Championship carried weight. Every fairway found felt like defiance. Every made putt felt like a statement. Because make no mistake, this wasn't just about golf. It was about legacy. The golf world had changed, torn between the traditions of the PGA Tour and the chaos of new leagues. Fans were divided, players were chasing paychecks, and the soul of the sport felt uncertain. And then came Rickie Fowler, not with speeches or headlines, but with guts, grinding, competing, earning. While others chased shortcuts, he chased meaning. While others talked about legacy, he started rebuilding his, and somehow that meant more than any trophy could. At the Revival, by mid-season, Fowler wasn't just trending again, he was inspiring. Golfers who had quietly doubted their own careers started believing again. Fans who had drifted away were suddenly watching every swing. Because Rickie's comeback wasn't just personal, it was symbolic. It reminded everyone that in golf, and in life, you're never truly finished until you decide you are. Even his stats told the story. A lower scoring average, more consistent cuts made, the putter back to its old magic. The numbers proved what his heart already knew. The climb was real. And as the season went on, something beautiful happened. The galleries started chanting his name again. The orange shirts came back to the grandstands. The sport found its color again. Legacy reclaimed, maybe. Rickie Fowler never needed to win another major to cement his legacy. Maybe all he needed was a moment, a single round that said, I'm still here. That 63 at the Truist Championship was more than a score. It was a statement carved into the soul of golf. Because sometimes, the greatest victories aren't on the leaderboard. They're in the comeback. They're in the refusal to quit when quitting would have been easier. They're in the swing that says, you were wrong about me. And that's why this story hits so deep. Because everyone, athlete or not, has felt that moment. That moment when the world stops believing, and you have to believe enough for both of you. Rickie Fowler did. And in doing so, he gave the game of golf exactly what it needed. A heartbeat. So when people look back at the 2025 season and ask what it meant, they'll talk about the drama, the rivalries, the chaos. But they'll also talk about one round, one man, one message that echoed louder than any leaderboard could. They said he was finished, but Rickie Fowler just proved them wrong. If you felt that comeback energy, hit the like button, because this wasn't just a round of golf, it was a reminder. The story's never over until you decide it is. Drop your thoughts below. Is Rickie's redemption just beginning? Rickie's redemption just beginning?